Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we'll be reviewing Jordan Dajani's or Dajani's. I don't know if he's Hispanic. I'm not racist, but 2026 NFL mock draft. two top five curveballs plus the team trades back into the round one for Ty Simpson. There's a little bit of a spoiler. I've already seen this fucking. I've already seen the Ty Simpson trade, so we're gonna get there when we get there. But regardless, we will be going with Fernando Mendoza, the #1 overall pick to the Las Vegas Raiders. What a flipping pick, yo. Yeah, I bet Tom Brady loves his kid. That's an awesome description. No hate to you, but like, damn, that's a really good description. I think Fernando Mendoza would be an amazing fit for this team. Listen, I don't view him as the most amazing can't miss prospect ever, but he is good enough to where I'm comfortable taking my #1 overall. Who's gonna play quarterback for this team? I mean, be honest. Who's gonna play quarterback? I don't know. Oh, dude, George Springer has a fractured toe. Jesus Christ, what am I talking about? There's like one video a week where I just feel so goofy that I don't even know what to do with myself. Today's one of those videos. It's like a Saturday mood. Fernando Mendoza goes here. I guess I like I said, the tools aren't elite. Like, I'm not gonna say like, oh, he has the arm strength of Joe Burrow, right? When he was coming out of college, or like the physical tools that Joe Burrow had, and how confident I was in Joe Burrow. That's always not it. But I feel like everything else is good enough to the point where his tools is good enough for the point I'm comfortable with him going here. And even with his Fernando Mendoza esque personality and leadership, I like that too. That's always another plus instead of a minus. So we're gonna go big Mendoza here. Love it. Reese goes to the Jets out of Ohio State, edge/linebacker. So the thing with Arvo Reese is that his strength is so unparalleled to some of these guys in this draft class. I think Ruben Bain, I've said this multiple times, Ruben Bain and Arvo Reese has a strength profile to their own tier. Bailey's more of a speed rusher, so that's why I'm not really bringing him up, obviously, because Bailey is a big, gigantic speed rusher. But Reese goes here. I actually like Reese. I think he makes a lot of sense for his team schematically too. If you go Reese here, you get another good edge. You get someone else who continues to keep on developing. He is more of a linebacker hybrid. That's why he's taking him. But I mean, he has had a lot of experience in multiple roles. I mean, the edge obviously during his whole area with linebacker too. And if he goes to the Jets here too, they've signed veteran guys, mainly Demario Davis, and there's another edge that they signed who's another veteran, but they've signed veteran pieces around him. So even if he doesn't work out, you have Demario Davis as a safety net to eventually develop Arvo Reese more as a linebacker more than anything. So I don't dislike taking Reese here. It's a solid pick. I don't think people need to really harp on this. Like, I wouldn't hate a team. Me personally, I like Bain more. I like Reese a lot, but I like Bain more. But like, they're like maybe like 2 or 3 slots different on my big board. It's not like that big of a difference where I'm like, oh, you took Reese here and you didn't take Bain here. Fuck you. Like, I'm not. It's not that big of a difference. Cardinals take David Bailey, edge out of Texas Tech University. Okay, so if you like David Bailey, I mean, if you really like David Bailey, right, you might reach for him a little bit. I'm just not as high as David Bailey as some people are, and with David Bailey's whole problem with his whole strength profile and all that shit, like, I don't know how I feel with him going this high. And I would much rather them go Bain. I think Bain has been a lot more productive and has a lot more better stats than anything. And he just isn't as sought after in my book. But I definitely can see the Cardinals going for him. But I'm not a gigantic fan of David Bailey here. So Titans go Sonny Styles, linebacker of Ohio State. This is honestly not my favorite pick either. Surprise. It's not Jeremy Lamb for Tennessee. I would like Ruben Bain here more. I think Saleh can use him similar to he did Fred Warner, which is like that big role safety. I think Saleh will maximize his effort, but I feel like this team for in a premier position, I think this organization might want a premier position as well. With Sonny Styles here, so I don't dislike taking Sonny Styles here, but I would like more of Ruben Bain here. Did I say Sonny Styles and more premier positions edge Sonny Styles? I meant Ruben Bain. I don't know why. I just messed up on my words, and I don't usually do that so much. Surprise, surprise. But regardless, Ruben Bain goes here. Sonny Styles goes here, and Ruben Bain is not a bad player, but I don't know. Giants go Mansour Lane, corner out of LSU. Not a bad option. I think this team does need a corner. And I wouldn't honestly be as upset if the Giants go Mansour Lane as opposed to Jeremiah Love, because Mansour Lane is a little bit of a smaller player, but he honestly has locked up a bunch of different players in his tenure at LSU. He was fine at Virginia Tech. He was decent here. I mean, obviously he's decent. He's a top 5 pick in this scenario, but he's also getting mocked in the top 12 consistently. So if you like Mansour here, you're gonna go pick him. And the team does have a glaring hole corner, and you don't know what's going on with Paulson Adebo. He hasn't shown up to any of the voluntary workouts, so maybe you decide you're gonna move on. But I guess he's been like in contact with the Giants staff. Regardless, your one of your main corners, your main starting corners, is gone. So if you want to save that's a long-term issue, you take Mansour here. Not a bad option, regardless. The Browns go Francis Mariano, offensive tackle out of Miami, Florida. Not a bad option. This team needs a real tackle. I mean, obviously there's swing tackle possibility in Titus Jones and like all these guys they sign, but like there's not a real like tackle that I feel comfortable long term. And I think Francis Mariano can be that building block you eventually settle for. I don't dislike Francis Mariano here. He has a bunch of strength. I think I like him more at the 6 than more at the 3, but I wouldn't dislike him. I would rather the Cardinals take him at 3 than take Bailey at 3. That's my idea. I like Francis Mariano as a prospect more than I do David Bailey. I mean, honestly, I like a bunch of these guys more than I do David Bailey. Not because it's a knock on him. It's just like there's a lot of like areas and issues with him. It seems like to be kind of the consensus with around the whole community saying David Bailey has his issues as a pass rusher, which we've all kind of noticed. So that says more about him than us. Commanders coach Jermaine Love, running back out of Notre Dame. So you did get Rashad White. I think that's his name, Rashad. I don't know. You did get White, ASU alumni, to pair up with your former ASU quarterback in Jane Daniels, who obviously transferred to LSU. But this is not a bad option. I feel like Jacoby Cross-Merritt and White are good enough to the point where I'm like, maybe you wait on running back. I know this running back class isn't particularly deep, but maybe you go, or maybe wait and go with someone better with Caleb Downs, which this defense does need a lot more on the defensive side of the ball. So maybe you go that, but it's not a bad option. Like I don't dislike a team taking Jeremy Love if they have the luxury of doing so, and this team can't have the luxury of doing so. But maybe you take another defensive cornerstone here, but maybe not. Saints take Cardinal Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I honestly wouldn't mind if Cardinal Tate goes to the Commanders either. That's another player. But to talk about the Saints, this team is probably going to maximize Tyler Sheck's rookie deal. And he isn't the youngest. I mean, you're not going to have him for like years and years. He's 26, but a rookie deal is a rookie deal. He's not paying that much money. He's not getting that much money. You take Cardinal, big Tate, you get a high floor receiver, someone who I really like. I think he's my favorite receiver in this class, mainly because of production, and also he just looks so good next to the best wide receiver in college football. Like without a doubt, he was. And with you take Cardinal Tate here, you get another high floor player. You get someone who can step in if Chris Olave gets injured, because he does have injury history. You can watch him grow as a player. He has a floor or a ceiling enough to the point where I feel comfortable with him getting 1,000-yard receiving years. And I feel comfortable enough to the point where he can take over if he needs to, and that's what I like. And you're getting more weapons. And next to I'm so used to saying Devon Achane, but next to Travis Achane, it's not a bad option to just take Cardinal Tate here. I don't dislike it whatsoever. The Chiefs take Caleb Downs, safety out of OSU. I don't dislike Caleb Downs at all as a prospect. I mean, honestly, he's my number one on my big board. Well, main reason is because it's just like he just knows the stuff, and the production's so enough where he's not just smart, he literally has the physical tools to be great, and he has the versatility to be great. Ohio State didn't use him very versatilely, which is fine because it worked. Whatever he was doing in Ohio State worked. That's why he's a top 10 pick. But like he hasn't been used that much like versatility, and I think he does definitely have that prowess. He's just like kind of like a joker where you can play him anywhere in that area, box up high, even in the nickel if you really want him to. Like wherever this team needs him to play, he can play, and he's such a great tackler. And I've said this multiple mock drafts. I think the only position he can't play on defense is maybe a power rusher on the defensive line. I think he can play linebacker. I think he can play safety. I think he can play corner if you really need him to. I think he can play nickel. Like that's what I like about him the most, is you can play him wherever you want, and he wasn't really used versatile at Ohio State, which is fine because again, like I said, it worked out. But great tackling ability, leadership, a real center fielder. Not a bad option to take your boy here in Caleb Downs. Bengals go Jamal McCoy, corner out of Tennessee. Listen, I like Jamal McCoy. I think he's fine. And with Mansour off this, he might want to take a higher upside shot at Jamal McCoy. You know, the thing with Jamal is that like he might not be the most reliable prospect in terms of his ACL injury, but he's honestly like he's a real boundary corner. And this class sometimes has these smaller corners. This class has a good amount of like safety and nickel hybrids, but Jamal McCoy is one of the true boundary corners that I can see going this high. And Delane is also another boundary corner, but he literally covers these big boundary boundary receivers super well. His speed is really good. Like the tape is good. It's just the problem is he hasn't played in over a year, so he might fall a little bit. But regardless, he's not the most surefire prospect in this draft class. I don't think I view him in the same realm as Caleb Downs in terms of like instant impact and amazingness. But like he is good, and he did run a 4.38. So I think the stock is a little high on him. The stock is rising, and mainly because his pro day, and people are saying maybe he isn't as setback as you thought it was after his ACL injury. So again, makes sense. I don't dislike it. Dolphins go Ruben Bain Jr. edge out of Miami. If Jeff Hafley gets another defensive cornerstone, another edge, which this team really lacks edge after getting rid of Bradley Chubb, you got one of your top 10 edges. Bain will be amazing for this team, and that's selling him short. Really, he will be an amazing pick for this team. Whatever team gets him, I feel like they will get an instant producer in terms of like dogness and like actually someone who can literally just take over a game. And you've seen it before. You've seen him take over games. You've seen him just being like, where is Ruben Bain? How is he going to get to the quarterback? That's how I thought against Ohio State. Where was Ruben Bain? Is he going to get to the quarterback? Or is he? When is he going to get to the quarterback? That's the thing. And Jeff Hafley can continue to keep on developing him. Not a bad option whatsoever. The Cowboys take Dylan Thielen, safety, out of Oregon. Listen, I like Dylan Thielen a lot. His whole area of his athleticism, his turnover prone ability, his smartness, everything is just solid. And I feel like people need to start giving him more credit about that. And I know people aren't really high on Dylan Thielen. I don't know why. I like him so much as an athlete, and there's not much lapses. And I watched the highlights of Penn State versus Oregon. I didn't even realize, because that's before I really had Dylan Thielen on my radar, where he got that game-sealing interception. And that's where one of James Franklin. Last head coaching games in Oregon and Eugene, Oregon. So that, I don't know. I just thought I'd bring that up. But Dylan Thielen, great turnover throwing ability. Can really just be an amazing piece for this team, and this team does need safety, so I wouldn't dislike it. Rams go Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. Again, not a bad option. This team keeps using the wide receiver. And honestly, with the concern and the ability to start building for Matt Stafford's renowned last year, I think people are kind of I wouldn't say like it's not guaranteed, but they're expecting that, and people are expecting that Matt Stafford coming off an MVP season. He probably doesn't have much left in the tank. He's like in his older 30s, and coming off an MVP season, you don't know when the drop off is going to happen. So people are kind of realizing, okay, maybe he's towards the tail end of his career. And honestly, yeah, he is. I mean, if I'm being honest, and it sucks because he was one of my childhood quarterbacks, and he's now gone. Like, one of the last people left in that generation who's still going, but he is still playing at an elite level. I mean, he just won a fucking MVP. So, I mean, that's the thing. And if you take Mekhi Lemon, who is as tough as they come, who has crazy good jumping for his size, who isn't the most explosive, but you've seen these type of receivers rise and thrive in the NFL. Maybe you just take the upside here, and not the upside, the instant impact here, and someone who I think can also have a bunch of upside just in general. So I wouldn't dislike taking Mekhi Lemon here. Not a bad option whatsoever. The Ravens take Vega Ione, interior offensive lineman out of Penn State. Listen, this is not a very schematic fit, but I think sometimes teams just like the idea of a surefire guard, someone who they can trust long term. Again, not a bad option. I mean, this team could really use another guard here. Not a very flashy pick, but another very simple one. I like it a lot. Bucks take Kojic Folk, edge out of Auburn. Listen, I'm not a big, gigantic fan of Kojic Folk to this team. It doesn't fit schematically whatsoever. This team is on a hot seat. I don't like a developmental player. I don't even like some of these developmental players. I mean, the biggest guy I can think of is Kojic Folk here. Like, I just don't like him here because this team isn't on a safe seat. Like, it would make sense if it was like the Raiders or something picking up pick 14 with seeing that the Max Crosby trade went through and they need an edge and then they can just work on a developmental piece because that regime is starting over. But if you take Kojic Folk here, this team will have a developmental player, someone who doesn't really get to the quarterback, is not known to get in the quarterback immediately. So that's my issue, but I wouldn't dislike taking Kojic Folk here. Actually, I do dislike it. I always say this, I do dislike it, but yeah, like that happens. But the Jets go Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of ASU. Not a bad option. This team could really be this could really be a game changer wide receiver and a real, like, the missing puzzle piece of that wide receiver core. They did lose John Mechie in free agency. I think he's back with Bryce Young and his former collegiate quarterback. But if we take Jordan Tyson here, you get another wide receiver who I actually really like in terms of prospect ability. Not a bad option to take Jordan Tyson here. You get, again, acrobatics. Just the only problem is his injury history, and I don't know, Gary Wilson has not had the cleanest injury history in terms of the NFL. But I don't dislike taking Jordan Tyson here. Makes sense. Lions take Spencer Fano, offensive tackle out of Utah. Not a bad option. I mean, this makes sense. This team doesn't need a left tackle. I think Penei Sewell can. I think Dan Campbell said he was playing the right side, but I think, or the left side actually. So if you take Spencer Fano, who's played right tackle in college, not a bad option to take Spencer Fano here. It makes sense. I don't dislike it whatsoever. Vikings take Peter Woods, defensive lineman out of Clemson. Listen, I like Peter Woods. I mean, honestly, the impact wasn't as big as it was expected to in the start of the season. But again, he was a really solid player, and I think people need to start giving him that credit. And I think even with the schematic changes around him, I don't dislike Peter Woods here. Makes sense. I mean, it's a simple pick, and this team did lose a lot of defensive tackles, mainly being Jonathan Allen up front. So I think this team might want to start investing into the defensive line a little bit more, especially with a guy who like his defense and Brian Flores are probably one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. Panthers take Kenyon City tight end out of Oregon. Again, not a bad option whatsoever. I think this team could use another wide receiver. And the thing with Kenyon City is that, again, he's not the most prolific tight end in the world in terms of blocking, but he's a real mismatch if you line him up on the outside. He honestly has a good upside, even like in regular traditional tight end sets where he's coming out the offensive line. He's honestly not just a bad player. I mean, people need to harp on him a little less. I think some of the draw problems have been bad. I don't think I'm as concerned as some other people are. So I think you can maybe branch off of that, but he also has like unreal athleticism and speed, so I don't dislike him here whatsoever. The Cowboys go Akeem Edwards or edge out of Miami, Florida. I mean, honestly, this really makes sense. I mean, it's instant impact. Like, this can be a real game changer for this team. I mean, honestly, it makes sense. I wouldn't mind taking a real swing. Jerry Jones is 83 years old. Great one, man. His descriptions are funny. I'm not really harping on him, but his descriptions are funny. Take Akeem here, you get another high floor player. Not a bad option. Take Akeem here. I like it a lot. Makes sense. I like it. I don't know why people really don't dislike him when Akeem Edwards gets to the quarterback. I know he does have the injury history, but the injury history has only come from him being not only, but mainly come from him playing defensive tackle. So not a bad option to take Akeem here. Makes sense. We're gonna move on to the next pick. Steelers take Caden Proctor, offensive tackle out of Alabama. Again, not a bad option to take Caden Proctor, who has a bunch of size, and he honestly has this described right where you could slot him into guard, or you can slot him into the left tackle position if you're not committed to that long term. This makes the most sense, and I don't think he has the most blow away speed in the world, but he does have definitely good enough speed to the point where I'm like, maybe he's good enough. I don't dislike taking Caden Proctor here. I mean, people like to harp on him a lot because he hasn't produced that much in college, and obviously the whole tight end situation at Alabama. But I honestly like him here. I mean, I don't view him as well as CBS, where it's the fourth prospect and the first in the position ranking. I think that's a little too rich because he's not that much developed. But I do like him in terms of like actually like being able to build off of him and the versatility too. He has honestly like the frame, because he's a little bit on the heavier side for an offensive tackle at 352, and he has the frame too, and frame and weight to move into guard if you need him to. And honestly, the speed isn't good enough to the point where I don't feel uncomfortable with him going into guard. So makes sense, and you can really shore up the offensive line with the team has a real need at guard. So I think I prefer more at guard in this certain situation, but I definitely can't see him playing an offensive tackle role if you're in another scheme or if you give up on Broderick Jones. So not a bad option. Chargers go Caleb Loomis, offensive tackle out of Utah. Again, not a terrible pick. I've mocked this before free agency, where before they let go some guards and sign some guards. But Caleb Loomis was honestly not a bad option for me mainly because you can play the guard swing tackle role. I feel like his strength is a little bit too marginal to the point where I get a little upset. But his speed's good. Like him and Fano have good speed, but sometimes their strength sometimes has lapses. But I don't dislike it. I don't know if I feel as comfortable as I did before. Maybe you need something else on the defensive side, or even a wide receiver isn't totally out of play. But I don't dislike taking Caleb Loomis here. The Harbaugh style offense likes to use these type of big type of guys, and eventually like these raw type of guys, and eventually be a real cornerstone for this team. Not a bad option whatsoever. The Eagles will Monroe Freeling, offensive tackle out of Georgia. So this is definitely an easy pick. I think if Monroe Freeling falls here, you go Monroe. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think if Monroe goes here, you build. You don't have to start him immediately. You can develop more as a player, which I think he needs to be a little bit more developed. He's not as raw as someone like Caden Proctor, but he definitely is raw. And three back-to-back left tackles go. I didn't even realize that, but it's a good option to kind of build off from Lane Johnson and kind of branch away from that area, from him being older with the injury concern. So I don't dislike taking Monroe here. We're gonna go Monroe Freeling. I don't dislike it whatsoever. The Browns going Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana. Really, Omar Cooper Jr. has produced a lot for how weirdly his role was. I mean, this was a very run-heavy offense, and even with his entirely like system, even with obviously a first-round quarterback, which obviously helps him more than it does hurt him. There is a lot of like moving parts to Omar Cooper Jr. It's not really because he can play one role. Like he's not like solidified to one role like some of these smaller guys, some of these bigger guys, which don't really have those slot or boundary expectations. Omar Cooper Jr. can play anywhere. His frame's good enough to the point where he can play anywhere. 6 foot, 200, and he has unreal contact balance. He's really one of the best contact balance wide receivers in the draft class, if not the best. And he just doesn't seem to go down. He always seems to fight extra, and that's what I like about him more. And then he also has a bunch of like good enough speed to the point where I feel comfortable with him getting down in space and getting out. That's what I like the most about him. It's obviously his contact balance and his speed, and you can literally play him anywhere. You can play him literally anywhere and everywhere. Indiana played him. I've seen him live in person, playing the slot, outside and boundary at the Rose Bowl. It was honestly a really good showcasing. Honestly, I love Amari Cooper Jr. as a prospect. I think his range is a little bit too high sometimes. I don't feel that comfortable with him at pick 16. I would honestly rather take Jordan Tyson because, like, even with the injury metrics, like, I feel like actually for the Jets, like, it's not that bad of an idea. But I don't know, maybe. I feel like his range is so it's so wide. Like, it's so wide. I can definitely see me a second round receiver because sometimes I don't feel comfortable with his like, he doesn't have elite athleticism, and he also isn't like has the most surefire hands, but he does have decent enough hands where I'm not like uncomfortable taking him in the first round, right? That's what I like about most. And there's not really much drop issues, but sometimes there's like some drops, which is a little bit concerning. And again, he's not a premier athlete, but he's not a bad option. So I wouldn't dislike taking Omar Cooper Jr. here. It's a good fit for this team, and this team does need like someone who can play it all. And I think they took No, they did not take Monroe Freely. Who did they take at the start? Took Francis. So yeah, they get their tackle and guard out of the or tackle and wide receiver out of the way, which is something they really needed. So not a bad option. I don't know why people are mocking the Bears taking Blake Miller so often. I think this team just has so much more need for it's kind of a mid tackle. Well, not mid, obviously. For drafting, you're not going to be mid, you're going to be above average. But regardless, I'm not that big of a fan of Blake Miller in terms of like actual tape. Sometimes there's big lapses, and I think yes, you would want more protection, but maybe not. Like, I don't know. They do have some holes in the left tackle area, but I feel like there's more holes in the defensive line and safety area regardless, because they lost two of their top safeties. Obviously, they're older, so I'm fine letting them go. But they did sign Kobe Bryant, which is a good safety filler. Not filler. It's actually a good like player for the long term because they signed him for 3 years, $60+ million contract. Again, not a bad option. I like Kobe Bryant. He was a big part in that Seahawks defense in that Super Bowl run. But with Blake Miller here, do you maybe want to go, like, the board for defensive tackle hasn't been that bad. Only Peter Woods has gone. So I think Kenny McDonald would be a good run-stopping nose for them. I don't think they run a 3-4, though. But if you run a 4-3, you go Christian Miller, who's not an elite athlete, but his strength is really good. And his run-stopping prowess is also as good, too. So I don't know. Maybe you take Caleb Banks and hope on the upside. Caleb Banks was like mocked a lot to 25 for me before he broke his foot at the combine, or like during the combine, around the combine time frame. So that was my issue. But I don't know. I feel like an edge might be in play too with TJ Parker here, who is also another like not an elite athlete, but he's produced in college in the past. Obviously a little bit of a down year, but like it's not that bad of an option. But like I don't know how much I like Blake Miller here, especially with like his whole idea of sometimes just blowing up, and there's bad reps, especially early on in his career, which he's kind of short up a little bit. But like I don't know how comfortable I feel taking him here. Bills go Caden McDonald, defensive lineman out of Ohio State University. If you like Caden McDonald, yeah, I definitely think it's a viable option. I mean, Caden McDonald can be a real good run stopper. I don't think I view, maybe he can beat Dexter Lawrence because he also is like a kind of a nose tackle rate. But I don't know. I don't dislike it. I wouldn't dislike him going to the Bills, who do have a vacancy at some sort of like run stopping. Their whole defensive line wasn't really that stellar, so like an upgrade is not bad. Maybe if you take Mac Warren, I wouldn't dislike it. He's a rangy safety. He doesn't have elite athletics traits, Mac Warren, but I mean it's not a bad option. But I don't dislike taking K. McDonald. I actually really like him as a prospect because he's a very run-stopping heavy nose that can be really good for this team. I think he also has more pass rush upside than people like to talk about. So I don't dislike him here, but I can see in other areas too. I definitely can see him going a wide receiver too. I don't know if maybe they go Casey Concepcion and get another like shifty guy who I've also mocked before. Denzel Boston seems a little too redundant, so I would stray away from that. But I don't dislike taking Cam McDonald here in any regard. So we're going to move on to the 49ers, who take Casey Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. Listen, I like Casey Concepcion. This team has been kind of linked to a wide receiver. I've heard rumors that this team might want a wide receiver. And it's definitely 100% because I don't think they're going to re-sign Juwan Jennings. I think that's going to be in the past. Brandon Ayuk is definitely not putting on a 49er uniform again. And I mean, you have Mike Evans. You did sign Mike Evans in fantasy, who I always felt was a long time buck, but I guess not. He is a long time buck, a lifelong buck is what I meant to say. But like, I don't dislike taking Casey Conception here. This team has been linked to wide receivers. This team has could use him similar. Debo Samuel deja vu. I mean, definitely. I don't dislike taking Casey here. I like him more than some of these other prospects. I like him more in terms of like injury. Obviously, with Jordan Tyson, I like anybody more in this class more for injury, other than maybe Chris Bo, who just tore his ACL off from Jordan Tyson. But like, I feel like he can be a real like game changer at times, and I don't dislike taking Casey Concepcion here, mainly because you literally can play him anywhere, and you play the punt returner. He's a real good special needs aspect, but you're not like taking him at 27 to be a punt returner, right? You can send someone off someone else's practice squad, or just get someone off free agency. But like, I don't dislike taking Casey Concepcion here because he's just super, super duper fast. He has no business getting this much separation, being this small, and getting past all these guys being this small. That's what I noticed most about his tape. He can really get past some of these defensive backs, which I really enjoy watching. Is him being able to be so shifty, get so much separation just for being so small. The only problem with him is his hands, which I think he can fit. And even his hands are just my biggest issue. He catches 66% of contested catches balls. More often than not, he comes down with these big catches. It's not even about like 53, like it's 67, 66, 67, which is a good amount. Like, he has a lot of traits to him, which I like more than Denzel Boston, who people like Denzel Boston more, but both of them are very situational. But I think Casey Concepcion fits in a lot more situations than some of these other guys. So I don't dislike taking Casey Concepcion here. We're gonna move on to the Texans, taking Maxi Sinatra, offensive tackle out of ASU. Another pretty good pick, honestly. I don't dislike taking Maxi Sinatra here. He doesn't have to start immediately. This team does need to start investing more into the offensive line, because the offensive line is the main reason why CJ Stroud couldn't even get the ball down. And again, I haven't said this in a while, but CJ Stroud during that playoff game against the Patriots had a mental timer in his head, and it's very apparent. The same shit Baker Mayfield had when he was in Cleveland, same shit Kyler Murray had when he was in Arizona, where the offensive line is so bad sometimes you just have a mental timer and you make dumb decisions and your footwork collapses and you have so much PTSD to the point where you don't understand. So this team's defense is good enough to the point where maybe you get a defensive, and the defensive tackle class is also pretty good enough to the point where maybe you take a defensive tackle later on. I don't dislike taking a defensive tackle like later, 56, or not 56, like I don't know, whenever they have their second round pick, and take Caleb Proctor, who's someone I haven't watched yet, but people are just getting a lot of buzz. Or a pick 38, take Caleb Banks, hopefully bank on the upside. And you already have a decent enough defensive tackle. You're kind of playing with house money right now. This team is a Super Bowl contender. I actually hate it. The Texans were a dark horse Super Bowl pick for me. They were actually like, I think they were in the conference championship when I did the playoff predictions, and obviously I chose the Seahawks, but it's definitely a viable option to continue to build for the future, and maybe that's not a bad option. And especially with how stacked this defensive tackle class is, it's not a bad option to maybe start building a little bit younger in the offensive line, which is very important. Chiefs take Zion Young, edge out of Missouri. Not a bad option either. I think he has good enough size to the point where I feel comfortable with him being a 3-down lineman. It's literally a Spagnuolo type defender, obviously an edge. I like Spagnuolo's style, which is more these high floor type run stopping guys, which makes sense. I don't dislike taking Zion Young here. You get another edge here, someone who can play both the run and the pass, and would be a good cornerstone for this offense. I definitely can see him going in the first round as well. I don't dislike Zion Young here. The Dolphins go Colton Hood, corner out of Tennessee. Again, not a bad option. Colton Hood can go to Miami and eventually be that corner number 1 there. Not a bad idea. It makes sense. And he did step in for Jamal McCoy being a number 1 corner. So I don't dislike taking Colton Hood here. Not the most stellar athlete in the world, but his technique is good enough to the point where I feel comfortable. And he's not my most favorite prospect ever, but it's fine. Maybe Avion Terrell is not a bad option, but he's a little bit smaller, so maybe you want a true, like, reliable boundary corner with decent enough frame. So not a bad option to take Colton Hood here. The Patriots trade back and get and the Rams trade up for Ty Simpson. I don't know what they gave up, but I wouldn't dislike taking Ty Simpson here. Maybe you just build for the future. And again, like I said earlier with their first pick, I said that Matthew Stafford tore the tail of his career might be this last season. So if you want to take Ty Simpson here, maybe you build for the future. If you really like him as a prospect, not a bad option. I don't know. I feel like if Ty Simpson goes past pick 34, teams might start being more aggressive. But I definitely can see him going at pick 34 to the Cardinals, even pick 33 to the Jets if they really love him. So my problem with Ty Simpson is that sometimes his long range and accuracy is a little bit too hard to look past sometimes. And he didn't produce, but was playing injury riddled and sickness. He had a big sickness, so maybe you hope he does fine. But I definitely see this maybe as kind of a reach, but I think I can definitely view him like a 3-pick difference for me, because I'm fine taking my pick 34, but I'm not fine picking pick 31, or just a little bias. So like a 3-pick like swing for me, pick 34 versus pick 37, or pick 34 versus pick 31. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And if a team really likes him, I'm fine giving up some capital, which is not too much, to trade back into the first round. Not a bad option whatsoever. Seahawks go Katas Howell edge out of Texas A&M. I don't like Katas Howell as much in the first round as other people and analysts do. Mainly because I don't trust his arm length in the NFL. You don't really see anybody record this type of arm length, and it's not a knock on him as a player. I think he has definitely the toolkit to be an NFL player, but sometimes I feel like he's undersized. He is more of a DPR. Like what I've seen on tape, he seems more like a DPR when he comes into the league. He's not a real 3-down lineman, and this team doesn't need him to be a 3-down lineman. Like, he can definitely get to the quarterback. So like, I'm fine with him going to the Seahawks, especially after losing Boye Mafe. And they might lose some of their like edge presence. Like, Katas Howell is not a bad area, but I feel like this team has lost so much in the secondary to the point where I can't really ignore that. And Avon Trell's on the board. Neil Warren's on the board. Like, there's a lot more players on the board that I feel more comfortable taking than Katas Howell, who's more of a project, and his arm length is historically short, so he might not get as much impact as some people might hope in the NFL. But that's my issue with Katas Howell. But I definitely can't see him going to the Seahawks. Like, it's not a bad option to go to the Seahawks, but I don't want him to go to an edge need team that needs a instant 3-down lineman edge and get Katas Howell, because I don't think he's a 3-down lineman just as of yet. And with his arms, I don't know if he ever will be. I don't think he ever will be, but I don't know if he ever will be. It's like a gigantic question mark. I like to be optimistic, but I don't know. I really don't know. So we're going to go Katas Howell here. I mean, there's worse options, but I don't know how well I feel about this. That is it. Thank you all for watching, bro. Let me know what you guys think. I just got done watching the UFC fights. I recorded a little bit before, and I stopped a little bit after them. So done with all that, and we're gonna move on. And yeah, we're just chinned Prohaska on a popped ACL. Man, it's crazy. Life really throws curveballs at you, man. Hopefully everybody's doing good. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. You matter.